Calum Ashvane had been king since he was 15 years old. He had learned grief before he learned to govern, and in the 14 years that followed, he had replaced every soft thing inside him with stone. He was fair, he was strong, he was respected by most and feared by the rest. But he had never, not once, allowed himself to need anyone. The 7 werewolf packs lived in a world just beside the human one, hidden in mountain territories, thick forests, and along wild coastlines that no human map marked clearly. At the center of it all sat the Alpha King's seat, and the Alpha King was Calum. He ruled the largest pack, the Northern Iron, with a steady hand and a quiet voice that somehow always silenced a room. Every decade, the 7 packs gathered at the Moonstone Citadel for the Revelation, a ceremony as old as the packs themselves. On that night, a carved aperture in the Citadel's great dome allowed moonlight to fall across the hall in a single silver beam. The light moved slowly, touching wolf after wolf, connecting those the moon goddess had chosen as mates. It was the most sacred night in pack tradition. Wolves waited their whole lives for it. Calum had stopped waiting years ago. He attended the revelation as a formality, standing near the front with his beta, Ranwick, both of them expecting nothing. The hall was full of wolves in their finest clothes, their breath held, their eyes wide with hope. Calum found the whole thing slightly exhausting. He had a kingdom to run. He did not have time for destiny. And then the light moved toward him. He felt it before he saw it, a warmth in his chest that his wolf, the great silver beast that lived inside him, responded to with sudden and startling energy. His wolf had been quiet for years. Now it surged forward, straining, alive in a way it had not been in a very long time. The silver beam crossed the hall, past every face between them, and settled on a young woman standing near the back wall. She was small. She was wearing the plain gray clothes of the Ashfen Hollow delegation, which meant she was a servant or an assistant, not even an official representative. She had dark eyes and a stillness about her that suggested she was used to making herself invisible. When the light touched her, she looked down at herself, as though checking whether something had gone wrong. Then she looked up. Her eyes found Calum across the hall. Her name, he would learn in the next 5 minutes, was Soriel Vane. She was 24. She was an Omega, the lowest rank in the entire pack hierarchy, and she was, according to the moon goddess's own light, his destined mate. The hall had gone completely silent. 300 wolves were watching. Calum looked at Soriel for a long moment. He watched something hopeful and terrified move across her face. He felt his wolf pulling hard toward her, harder than it had pulled toward anything in years. And then he did something that no Alpha King had done in 3 centuries. He spoke the rejection. His voice was calm. He gave a political reason, something about pack alliances and the stability that an Omega Luna would threaten. He spoke clearly and without hesitation. Every word landed in the silence of the hall like a stone dropped into still water, and every wolf present felt the psychic break of the severed bond, like a sudden pain behind the eyes. Soriel did not cry. She absorbed each word with her eyes open and her hands still at her sides. When he finished, she bowed, a small, precise movement, and then she turned and walked out of the citadel. The doors closed behind her. By the following morning, she was gone entirely, and no one in the pack world knew where. What Calum did not say aloud, and what he told no one, was the real reason. It was not politics. It was fear. He had watched his father love his mother completely, and then he had watched his father be destroyed when she died. The grief had made his father weak, and weakness had gotten him killed at 43. Calum had sworn, at 15 years old, standing over 2 graves instead of 1, that he would never give anyone that kind of power over him. He would never love something he could lose. He told himself, in the weeks that followed, that he had made the right decision. He told himself this so many times that it began to feel almost true. But the land had other opinions. It started slowly. His wolf, which had surged so powerfully toward Soriel in the Revelation Hall, went quiet again, quieter than before, quieter than Calum had ever known it. Then his healing slowed. A cut on his arm from a sparring session took 4 days to close instead of 1. Younger alphas from other packs began testing his authority in small ways they would not have risked before. And the Northern Highlands, the most fertile territory in the entire pack world, land that the Northern Iron Pack had tended for 6 generations, began to dry at its edges. Grass yellowed, springs thinned. The oldest wolves in the pack muttered about it privately and would not meet Calem's eyes when he walked past. 5 years passed this way, 5 years of slow and steady loss. Meanwhile, Soriel Vane had walked into the human city of Varenholm and made herself a life. She had rented one room above a bookshop, found work in that same shop, and spent every evening reading. She was not running away from pain. Or rather, she was, but she was doing something else at the same time. Before her grandmother had died, 2 years before the revelation, she had pressed a journal into Soriel's hands. It was very old. The writing inside was in a dialect of the old pack language that almost no one alive could still read. Soriel had kept it without understanding it. Now, alone in a human city with nothing but time, she taught herself to read it. It took 2 years. The journal belonged to the first Luna, the original mate of the original Alpha King, at the very beginning of pack history. What it contained changed every single thing Soriel believed about herself. Her wolf's broken shifting, the partial, incomplete transformations that had made her the subject of laughter and pity her entire life, was not a defect, it was a delay. Her bloodline was ancient, far older than anyone in the Ashfen Hollow had known or said. She carried the blood of the first Luna herself, and that bloodline's power could not fully emerge until she had been rejected. The rejection was not the end of her story. According to the journal, it was the beginning. On a cold night in her 3rd year in Varenholm, standing alone on a hilltop outside the city, Soriel shifted for the first time completely. Her wolf was not silver like an alpha's, not the dark brown of a beta, not the pale gray of an omega. It was white, pure, luminous, and enormous, larger than any wolf she had ever seen, including Calem's. The light it gave off was not reflected moonlight, it was its own. She was what the journal called a Luna sovereign, not a mate, not a consort, a sovereign power in her own right, able to touch and heal the bonds between wolves, able to strengthen or dissolve pack connections with intention. The pack world had not seen one in 500 years. She spent another year in Varenholm deciding what to do. She owed nothing to the pack world. She had been publicly humiliated by its highest authority, and had been left to disappear without a single voice raised in her defense. She could stay in the human city, live quietly, and let whatever was coming come. But the journal was specific about one thing. If a Luna sovereign did not act when pack bonds began to decay, the damage would spread outward, past wolves, into the land itself, and from the land into human communities built unknowingly on pack territory. She had been following the news in Varenholm for months. Northern highland droughts, livestock dying without cause, crops that would not grow, humans who had no idea that the ground beneath their feet was mourning something. She packed the journal. She began the journey back. She told herself it was not for Calem. It was not, but she was honest enough, in her quiet way, to admit that she was also curious to see what 5 years had made of the man who had looked at the moon goddess's own light and said no. The 7 packs had gathered at the Moonstone Citadel for an emergency summit. 2 Southern Alphas had formally challenged Calem's authority, citing the weakening land, his declining command over the pack bond, and the growing disorder among the territories. The atmosphere in the Great Hall was close to open conflict. Calem sat at the head of the council table, looking exactly as he always had, controlled, precise, giving nothing away. But Ranwick, who had known him since childhood, could see the hollowness behind it. The great doors opened. Every head in the room turned. No one recognized her immediately. She had changed, not in appearance, but in presence. She walked into the hall with the kind of quiet steadiness that makes a room feel suddenly smaller around a person. She wore no rank markers. She carried only the old journal under one arm. But when she stepped into the light of the hall's high windows, every wolf in the room felt something shift, a deep, instinctive pressure, like the air before a storm. Their wolves recognized what she was before their minds did. Calem stood up before he decided to. He saw her, and something that had been cold and broken in his chest for 5 years moved toward warmth all at once, without his permission. Soriel looked at him across the room. Her expression was not warm, and it was not cold. It was simply clear. She walked to the council table, set the journal down in the center of it, and addressed the room before Calum could speak. "I am not here for the bond," she said. "I am here for the land." She translated the first Luna's journal aloud, passage by passage, for 2 hours. She explained what a Luna sovereign was, and what the land's decay meant, and what could be done about it. 2 of the dissenting alphas tried to discredit her, calling the journal a forgery, calling her an Omega playing a role she had no right to. The room grew loud and dangerous. It was Calum who silenced it. He stood, and he told the truth. All of it. He told the 7-pack leaders why the land was dying. He said the word rejection out loud, in front of everyone, and he named his own fear as the reason. He did not dress it in politics. He said that he had been afraid to need someone, and that his fear had cost every wolf in every pack territory 5 years of damage they had never agreed to bear. The room went absolutely silent. It was, by every account later given by those who were present, the most honest thing an Alpha King had ever said in that hall. In the weeks that followed, Soriel performed the rewriting. The ritual described in the first Luna's journal that no one had attempted in 5 centuries. Under the full moon at the Citadel, with all 7 packs gathered, she spoke the old words, while the moonlight shifted and changed above them. The silver beam that had always illuminated single pairs now split, reaching outward, touching every unmated wolf in the field. The new covenant settled over the pack world quietly and completely. Under it, Omega wolves held seats on every pack council. The mate bond remained sacred but became a choice, not a permanent chain, but something renewed with intention by both people, on their own terms. Luna positions were made co-equal to Alpha positions, not beneath them. The title of Alpha King became Alpha Steward, a guardian of the covenant rather than an authority above it. When the ritual ended, rain began to fall on the northern highlands for the first time in 5 years. Those who stood in the field felt it as a kind of answer. Later that night, when the fires were lit and the packs were celebrating, Calum found Soriel standing at the Citadel wall, looking out over the highlands in the rain. He did not have a speech ready. He had learned, finally, that speeches were a way of controlling what the other person heard, and he was done trying to control things that were not his to control. He told her he had been wrong. He told her he knew what his fear had cost. He told her that he was not asking for the bond back, because he understood that it was not his to ask for. What he asked was simpler and harder than that, whether she would be willing to begin again, from nothing, as 2 people who chose each other, not because a beam of light said they should, but because they decided to. Soriel was quiet for a long time. The rain came down soft and steady on the land that was finally beginning to heal. Then she said yes, not because destiny had written it, because she chose it, with her own clear eyes and her own full understanding of who he had been and who he was trying to become. That was the only kind of yes she had ever been willing to give. The pack world that followed was not perfect. No world is. But it was more honest than the one before it, and it was fairer, and it was alive in a way it had not been for a very long time. The youngest Omegas in the 7 packs grew up in a world where the moon goddess's light could reach them too, and where their voices were counted, and where the ground beneath their feet stayed green. And somewhere in the northern highlands, in the steady rain of a long overdue season, the land breathed again,